Is this thing on? The deep end is back for 2024. Finally, okay, sure. It's March 5th. Adam knows from the old days, this didn't used to be like late for getting into off-season talk, but it kind of feels that way now. We'll catch up. Mike Shope with Adam Krautwurst. Cody Carpentier will join us. We'll talk a lot about the just ended NFL Combine, especially at wide receiver. So many names, so many possibilities. What will it mean for our spring drafts? And, maybe most, dare I say it, most importantly, the NFL draft. Powered by the Player Profiler Network. Thanks for being back with us as we kick off for us 2024. Mike and Adam, this is the Deep End.
Oh, so good to be back. The Sharks, I missed them. I missed the Sharks. I missed the deep end. But I'm ready to get drafted in here. It's been a long month off. You know what I mean? Like you said, normally it's longer than this. But back in the day, you'd open up a magazine in like July 4th weekend and get rolling. Now it never ends. I love it. Speaking of that, we're promoting a never too early, because it's never too early to do drafts that you and I are in over at the FFPC. We entered one. I'll pull up here a little information. We entered one next week, next Tuesday, Mike?
Next Tuesday at 10 Eastern. 11 spots are still open, but we invite anybody watching or listening to us to join us next Tuesday. We haven't decided yet, because of the late start, whether we will stream the draft live or after the fact. It'll be one or the other. And a big part of our plans for, I don't know what this is going to sound like. What is this to say? A big part of our plans for this year is drafting live on the stream through FFPC. So that'll be these never too early drafts, at least this one coming up, and probably one or more as well. And then eventually into the Fantasy Pros tournament, best ball tournaments, even some of the smaller stuff, Superflex. We want to dabble in all of it throughout the offseason. We think that that's one of the best ways to attract an audience and sort of get a community going is with drafts. We certainly haven't invented that, but it's a part of our focus for this year, starting next week.
Yeah, so everybody jump into that. It's next Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern time, never too early, $125 entry fee there, $25,000 grand prize. So if you think you have an edge with the draft stuff and the dynasty type stuff, that will be your chance to get in and kind of kick our butts. We're going to be doing a bunch of those all summer. We're going to be doing podathons again with a lot of those tournaments, obviously. And listen, when I'm fired up for draft season, like today, that's just when I know it just naturally happens. When I'm like, what are the flight costs to Vegas for this?
Oh.
And that's what happened on my phone. Southwest, Mike, right now out of Buffalo, less than $400 round trip. Just saying. If you want to get in there early,
for
that's what I know.
One?
Starting to Jones. Sorry, what was that?
For week one?
For week one, for the big drafts, the main events out there.
Oh boy.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's still the time of year where I say I'm not going.
Oh yeah. And then that's right. That's right. You tried that one time and I just ignored you. So.
Then I pay double. This will not be my first never too early. I know you've been drafting a lot of quote baseball.
That's right.
And other things. I'm in here a few times already. You want to look at a board that I just put up for you, Adam. Chives forward, team number 10 in this one. Is that a problem to show the names? I forget all the rules.
No, that's over with. Once Twitter started, that's over with. Yeah, I don't got to worry about that.
I'm still in. Maybe I'm up to 10 drafts. It might not even be 10 at this point. I know. I'm Charlie Bucket. What, 200 chocolate bars? No, just 2. I'm sorry, but has the podcast ever sounded older? That's from the original. Every time I can, Adam, so far this year, I've been drafting Green Bay. I just think the value is there. Jordan Love here in this draft, late 7th. What is that, quarterback? 9. I mean, that's not real cheap after drafting Anthony Richardson. But I love the sort of mid-range stacking opportunities with Christian Watson and Musgrave and Dobbs, of course, and Jaden Reed. You even have Kraft and Dontavian Wicks. I believe I took both of those players in this draft. just because I think the second half they had was really tremendous, and I'm buying it. I'm buying into it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot now. Now's the time. It's going to lock into a couple of those teams. The Cardinals are a team that I'm going to be, like I said, I haven't really dove in yet, but you got the McBride and maybe Harrison makes it there and that type of deal. So you can try to stack that early now before the draft, and obviously Kyler Murray. So yeah, there's lots of like interesting little stacks that you should be doing, right? Like what are the things you should be doing in these early drafts? You should be drafting rookies. You should be looking ahead. A lot of people drafting now are like draftniks too, where they're just like totally into it. What teams are they going to go to? You should be diving into like projected teams that they should go to. We're going to have Cody on in a couple minutes here. Cody Carpentier, I'm sure he would be really good at stuff like this because he's projecting out what teams are going to trade and move around. You know, the whispers, kind of ear to the ground type thing. Those are the type of people that should be in these and really taking advantage of everybody else.
There's Jalen Wright, by the way. I think tonight's going to be a wide receiver focused conversation, but early on, I mean, not that this is that late, but I sort of decided Jalen Wright was going to be my rookie running back, and he was one of the better performers at the combine. So we'll see. Running back, I mean, Adam, so far it sounds like in rookie drafts, you know, not in the first round. We might not see one go in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. But the depth, I don't know, maybe we'll get into this with Cody. Again, we want to focus on receivers, but you have a lot of comparable players. I mean, in all of college football, there's going to be some running back talent. And I think you could have a year here where day 3, I mean, most teams will have not picked one yet. Everybody wants at least one more in their, you know, on their roster, you know, practice squad or whatever. So I think it might be tough. It often is to decide which ones are the right ones, especially if you're drafting pre-NFL draft. But there are a lot of possibilities at running back if you're talking about late round fantasy picks, you know, day 3 NFL picks.
Yeah, and running back this year, kind of how it is for Dynasty as well. But yeah, you know, with the running back position, it doesn't really get talked about this year because it's just not a very, very good class. And so I'm still at the point where I'm like, you know, that I don't have the names. That kid from Oregon, I'm still that
Bucky.
Yeah, that's right. That kid from Louisville, I'm still there right now with a lot of the running backs. So I do have to dive into that a little bit more as we're going to talk about receivers tonight. Obviously, this is a huge receiver class. I heard an NFL draft analyst was saying, like, if you need a receiver this year and you don't take one in the first round, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, there's like 7 or 8 of them that could go in the first round. So that's going to be super interesting. Landing spots will obviously make a big difference too.
I think what's interesting about that is that there are more than 7 or 8 good receiver prospects that you're into round 2 at least. I talked to Connor Rogers today from NBC Sports on my show, WGR Sports Radio 550, and he's like, I think there are at least 9 offensive linemen going in the first round, 6 locks at tackle. You're going to have 4+ quarterbacks. There are going to probably be some defensive players picked in the first round. I mean, there are a few really talented corners who also had great athletic weekends at the combine. Enough from me about the combine, with Cody Carpentier waiting backstage to join us with as much as Cody knows about all the prospects and what, as we get into another year here of trying to figure out what's going to happen at the NFL draft and what we should do about it in fantasy football. Cody is probably well known to you. He came out guns blazing in the Deep End Invitational 101. Anthony Richardson got off to a lead, done in, I guess, by the Richardson injury, as a lot of us were. We know Cody from PlayerProfiler, but also Roster Watch, and he's been on the show a few times. Let's welcome in Cody Carpentier here on the Deep End. Mike and Adam, back with you. March 5th, 2024. Hi, Cody.
How are we doing, man? Mike, I appreciate it. Adam, I appreciate you guys. And I think my first comments have to be just based on looking at your draft board here a second ago. I know that draft Sharks Invitational was a little different draft, but I don't think I'm going to be getting Trey McBride in the 17th round this year.
No, you aren't. And listen, but you might need to take Anthony Richardson at the 101 this year, like you did last year. It took a little flack, but hey, he was a stud through the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
That was a Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I remember drafting that from a closet in South Carolina when my wife was on an away rotation and running the tricycle there with Anthony Richardson, Dak, and then Cousins. And yeah, I felt pretty good about it, a couple weeks into the season until Richardson and Cousins go down. But I think I still finished third in the league, if I remember right. And that was with one quarterback. So hopefully we run it back this year. And I don't know, maybe I'll if I get the 101, maybe I'll have to think about running that tricycle this time with a, much more a pick that makes a lot more sense with Anthony Richardson.
It was a super flex for all those of you who are wondering why anyone would take a quarterback at the one. Here it is, by the way. We have it.
No, this is something else.
Oh, okay.
The first draft I did this year, I saw JD from the GOAT District tweet an invite out. All right, let's go. Let's do this, So I signed up. He got the 101 this year and picked Richardson.
There you go.
So, how about that?
Wow. When was this draft?
As early as it was possible. Like if that might have been January. Did they start these in January? I think maybe they did.
Maybe, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
very cool.
Interesting is right. I hate
January 23rd is when it was a slow draft. That's when it started.
I hate seeing my guy Josh Allen not at the 101. I hate it, but Richardson when he plays, man, it's points per game are sensational.
That's my team with Allen. There's Jordan Love again, by the way.
Beautiful. That's right.
Allen, Diggs, Kincaid. We've got all summer to figure out what that's going to look like. Every other team. Cody, so Indianapolis, am I right in sensing that it was maybe, if not the best year ever for athletic prowess for the combine? I mean, one of them, every time I looked up, even the offensive linemen on Sunday were getting rave reviews for their athletic ability. What kind of a weekend was it for you?
It was awesome. I mean, last year was the first year that they allowed fans in first off to the stadium to watch the events for free in Indianapolis. And that's of course a longer conversation. I think they're trying to potentially make some money off of that here in a couple of years as a real event. But being in there for just the second year in a row as a media member, being able to watch every day, all the training, all the on-field work, all that stuff was awesome. But this receiving group, like you just mentioned, most athletic, the receiving group was quite literally the most athletic of the last 24 years at the NFL Combine. They averaged 4.44 across the board at the wide receiver position. That's among 30 wide receivers. And that's first all-time. Second all-time would be 2009 with a 4.46 average. So you're right. You hit the nail on the head. The most athletic group of all time. Running backs, yeah, not so much on the most athletic conversation. But yeah, there's a couple of offensive linemen that came in. Nobody wants to talk about that. But I mean, Amarius Mims, Taylor Guyton, guys that came, Joe Alt, 6'8", 340, guys like this. So very big class, very fast class at the wide receiver position, and very not dense at the running back position.
Yeah, it's this. I don't know how far out you go with these, but like is next year doing the same thing? Because I'm looking at Dynasty, like, hey, this is the receiver year. This is the quarterback year too. I mean, you could have 4 or 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, maybe more. Teams trade up. Is the running back position looking down for the next couple of years, or what are you thinking?
This year is definitely the quarterback class. Next year, not so much. People are maybe accustomed to a couple names that are out there. Shedeur Sanders, Colorado, Quinn Ewers, Texas, guys like that. But next year is the running back class. This year is not running backs. Next year is all running backs. The receiver class, it feels like the last couple of years is kind of better and better and better and better. Next year, right now, it's looking like a smaller class. Kind of, I don't want to say similar to last year, but kind of more similar. This year, just a lot of big dudes, a lot of 6'3s in the 2024 class. 2025 is going to be a little bit smaller. But definitely the strength of next year is going to be the running back position, where that's the weakness. As far as the fantasy positions go, the weakness this year is running back, and the strength next year will be running back 100%.
We will get into some of these receivers by name, what happened over the weekend, what it means for their NFL draft status, and what we can do about it in fantasy after a short break with Cody Carpentier, Mike Shope, and Adam Krautwurst in the deep end. A word now from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by PlayerProfiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
Welcome back to the deep end. So back to receivers and what happened at the recent NFL Combine. Cody Carpentier, Cody, Xavier Worthy. I mean, there were a few names I think everybody knew, and he was like on the next list that a lot of people knew, but not everybody knew. Some of these guys have teammates that outperform them on their college teams. Here comes Worthy, 4.21. Love how he did it, by the way. In your opinion, as we start with him, what was his, consensus, or in your view, range as far as where he probably would go in the draft, and how did his time change that?
The conversation going into the combine was, of course, not round one conversation. Everybody knew he was fast. When he was coming out of high school, he ran a 10.55, I think the number was, as a sophomore, but because of COVID, he wasn't able to run his senior year. But he has said multiple times, I was going to run a 10.1. I would have run a 10.1 as my senior year in Fresno. That's really what I wanted to go back and do. I'm going to hold that. It's going to be one of those things he holds against himself forever, not being able to run that senior year and have a 10.1 in the books. And if we would have known that, I think the conversation would have been had going in. There's a record potential on the line. Before the combine, Lance Zierlein had him wide receiver 17. He's, middle second round, late second round. He had some drop issues last year, 2022. There was news that came out at the end of 2022. Played with a broken hand all year. Made sense why he had some drops. He did have a couple this year. A lot of injury, not big injuries, but more so like on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. He would get nicked up in the middle of a game. He'd have to miss a couple drives. It was an ankle, it was a knee, it was a hip, things like that. He's a slighter frame guy, 165 pounds. So the question really was, what's his longevity look like in the NFL? He's not quite the same player as Tank Dell from a route running perspective. So he's not a skater. He doesn't just get open at will in intermediate, where that's something that Tank can do very well. Worthy is a guy that can create with the ball in his hand or deep downfield. So the conversation really was, is he complete? Now with the 4.21, I can't really explain to you the feeling inside of Lucas Oil on Saturday night when he ran that 4.21. It was 4.22 up on the board. And again, like I mentioned before, it's only the second year they've had fans. It was electric. It was like, a game-winning touchdown. It was like that same feeling. Now, again, there was only 5,000 fans in there, so it was a smaller scale, but it was like everyone was just like stood up and they knew what just happened, and he was ecstatic. And I think really what this does, and I talked to Alex Dunlap, my man from Roster Watch, about this, and he said it almost feels like when stuff like that happens, particularly, it'd be different if you ran a 4.24, 4.26. It's like, oh, that's really fast. But something about that 4.21 and something about, like the John Rosses and those guys that do run that fast, it leaves a weird, everlasting feeling in these teams' minds. And these are some conversations that we had in Indianapolis with teams that were just like, nobody has that. Nobody, Tyreek Hill is fast, right? But nobody has that 4.20, 4.21 speed and can be a game changer and be a high-end 4-star recruit coming out of high school and dominate as a freshman at Texas, 900 plus yards. I don't want to say it's a flat circle in this sense, but the draft is always ends up being a flat circle. You talk about these prospects for 3-4 years on end, and it always ends up coming back around. And people that remember this, Xavier Worthy was in the conversation with Marvin Harrison, 400, 500 days ago, year and a half ago. And now Worthy's back into the top 5 conversation. And with that 4.21, it arbitrarily jumps him from the 45 to 60 range in round 2, as far as the overall pick, up into I think 14 to 32 in the NFL draft. And I think it cemented himself as a first round pick. I mean, and it makes sense just based on the speed, but make no mistake, he's not a one trick pony guy. He can make players miss in the open field. It's just that he's a slider frame guy.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you think that kind of translates? Maybe you just answered it there at the end, but does it translate? Is he more of a track star, or can this guy really play? I mean, I watch YouTube highlights and stuff, but this is what you do. What do you think?
I think he does. I think he does translate to the NFL, but I think it's in a sense it's difficult because the game speeds up at the NFL level, and those inches in college become millimeters and centimeters in the NFL. And you can turn on the tape, even if you turn the highlights on, like you said with Xavier Worthy, you'll see plays against Wyoming, a play against Oklahoma, where he may catch the ball at the line of scrimmage on a screen, and 7 defenders from Wyoming will have a good angle on it, and he can beat that angle with that speed in college. The question will be, can he beat that angle in the NFL? And does that yak translate to the NFL? Again, he's 165 pounds, and we don't see guys 165 pounds, let alone, and generally, and you can even look at the speed thing, guys that run 4.21s, 4.24s, 4.26s, those guys generally don't translate.
Mm-hmm.
It comes into conversation with their route running and with their ability to separate downfield, and that's something that Worthy, like I said, is not on the Tank Dell level as far as the route running in the intermediate areas, but he is a high-end talent at the wide receiver position. He's advanced. He's not a John Ross. He's not these guys. He's not a Jalen Hyatt. He's not a one-trick pony type of a player. So I do think the game translates, but I'm just going to keep on reiterating it. As much as I love Xavier Worthy, I am a little bit scared about I don't want to say injury history, but the continual nicks and banged up he ended up being over the last year at Texas. But I do think the game overall translates to the NFL.
Especially at that size, maybe you'd be worried. Brian Thomas, I was looking at mock drafts, Cody, where our Bills at pick 28 were getting Brian Thomas as wide receiver 4 in the first round. Maybe those days are long gone. Now he was coming in above Worthy. Maybe he still should, running a 4.33 at 44 pounds heavier than Worthy. What about Brian Thomas, LSU, for you before and now?
It's going to be a very interesting dichotomy to see how this goes the next 50 days going into the NFL draft. I will say I think his game in certain offenses can be exploited at the NFL level. I've had this conversation a lot. If it is Kansas City, if it is Dallas, if it is Buffalo, if it is Philadelphia, somewhere where we have a quarterback, first off, that can get the ball down there. And secondly, we have an offense that is potentially creative and willing to create plays, particularly for Brian Thomas 4 or 5 times a game. His route running is developmental. That's just kind of where it's at right now. He does do the one thing at an elite level. He does run the 4.33 at 210 pounds. He did have 17 touchdowns this year. But as far as anything outside of the 8 and 9 route, it's at a developmental level right now. We chart all of the work at the NFL Combine, not just the testing. Now, again, the testing, the 4.33 is beautiful, right? Everyone looks at that. They go, man, this is a big dude. This dude can move. But we already knew that, right? We can't double count that. And I think that's why you're starting to see some people come back down to earth on him. You can't double count that. And everybody knows that. Anybody in the fantasy space, anybody in the NFL space knows when you're analyzing something, you have your thought, your preconceived notion. I expect this guy to run sub 4.4. He did it. Okay, cool. We knew that. But the route running on the field, which it feels like a lot of people on Twitter don't really pay attention to when they start coming out with these takes. Brian Thomas, and I'll just lump in Troy Franklin and Devontae Walker. These guys tested at the bottom of the last 2 classes in their base route grades and their gauntlet grades. And I guess I could explain that whole process in a short term and saying, after they ran the 40, they go on the field and they run every route, and we grade them on the route running and the gauntlet, period. Franklin was the worst in the class. Brian Thomas was 3rd to worst in the class as far as the route savviness, the cleanliness, the gauntlet, all of those nuances, catching the football, not, the how just all these things that you grade these receivers on. I could go on and on about it, but just point blank, Franklin and Thomas, that is one thing where they came in well below average and really in a developmental stage where a year ago we're talking about just to compare, like, I don't even know if you can remember these names: Jalen Brooks, Jaden Hasselwood, Jalen Wayne, Cedric Tillman was down in this conversation last year. Not good wide receivers. Now, again, I'm not saying these guys can't succeed, but just as far as their advanced route running, the expectation has to be, unless Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin are in these elite offenses where we can see, there's multiple weapons and opportunities are there, it's going to be a lot longer road for these guys to become stars than a couple of these other guys.
Yeah, I totally get that. It makes me sick to hear you talk about Troy Franklin that way, because he's my guy, and we might get to him in a minute. But for the kind of the layperson like me, who just kind of obviously doesn't know as near as much as you about these rating these players and these rookies coming out, how much does like, okay, he goes to LSU, how much does that matter? Like, their receivers are always awesome, or Ohio State, they're always awesome. So yeah, maybe he's not there now, or do you hold that against him because LSU didn't get him there, or Ohio State didn't get them there so far in their route running? How do you kind of view that, or does that not matter at all?
I don't really view it in that sense. I know there's a lot of teams, and you can just draw this Brian Thomas thing back, and I'm not going to say he's comparable to Terrace Marshall or DJ Chark or guys like this, but you can tie it kind of similar to coaching staffs, evaluators on these colleges that have a type. And it seemed that Brian Thomas fits that type of, the Charks, the Terrace Marshalls, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that the same person recruited all these guys or anything, but I'm saying it's a type that fits an offense. And this particular offense, he fits that offense. He's a super athletic big guy. And some guys just don't pick up on those route nuances, and they're not able to grow as fast. Now you go and look at Malik Neighbors, it's a whole different conversation. So most of it is just player dependent.
Cody, the guys at the top, I mean, it's been pretty sturdy up there. Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze. You've got quarterbacks going at the very top of this draft, almost definitely. So we've been sort of topping out with Harrison at 4. And, the fact that these guys, to varying degrees sort of begged off of the combine, including the quarterbacks too, was its own story. Where are you now on those three, like the so-called big three in this receiver class? Are they all top 10 picks? Are you maybe finding yourself higher or lower on one of them than consensus?
No. So, this is a conversation. It's actually pretty wild. I was in Indianapolis last week with Matty Kiwoom, player profiler guy, Alex Dunlap, my guy from Roster Watch, and being in the same house as people that love football and talk about football and diagnose football as much as we all do. You know this as well as anybody who can, Las Vegas, whatever. You have conversations with guys, and we had the exact conversation for about 6 hours. I think it was on like Thursday night, right before these guys even ran. Nothing. We started out. We should have been. We started out at like Buffalo Wild Wings, eating dinner, whatever, happy hour, 9 o'clock at night. And we ended up getting back to the Airbnb and watching film, all 22, on Marvin, on Malik, and on Rome until about 2:30 in the morning. And it was just what, and really what it came down to is Maddie loves Rome. I love Malik. Alex loves Malik. We turn Marv on. Man, it's maybe, and you're just, it doesn't matter. Really what it comes down to is what you're doing right here is you're picking between Larry Fitzgerald, and this is going to sound blasphemous, right? You're picking between Larry Fitzgerald and Rome Odunze. You're picking between Marvin Harrison, I misworded that. Larry Fitzgerald, Torrey Holt, and AJ Green. AJ Green is Marv, Torrey Holt is Malik Neighbors, and Larry Fitzgerald is Rome Odunze. You pick one. Have at it. Have your choice. I don't care. It doesn't matter. These three receivers are excellent. They do almost nothing bad. I would say nearly nothing bad. They're very advanced receivers, and the idea that they all three go top 10 in the NFL draft, I would say you can't say anything's a certainty, but I would put it at, if you were to give me odds, I'd say 85% chance these three guys go top 10. And the thought of that should tell people in itself what these guys are worth. And there is no conversation. Who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. Doesn't matter. It's all about the team's taste, the team's feel. And we, as a fantasy community, in the conversation we're having right now, should be blessed and should be happy to just have 3 at this level, right? It's awesome to get 1 every year. We getting 3. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you have Rome 1, if you have Malik 1, and I have Marv 1. Doesn't matter. They're awesome. Enjoy it. And if you have, you pointing the pistol at me, I'm picking Malik. If I'm in a fantasy draft and I have my option, I'm trading down a pick. I'm taking Malik. I feel best about it. But like I said, this is an amazing class, and we need to be happy about it.
I love.
Is there a team up there? I think this is the answer to this, Adam. We've talked about it before. Is like, don't overrate the importance of this, but top 10 teams are often bad teams. Is there a team up there that you're sitting there hoping doesn't pick one of your guys to sort of affect this negatively to an important extent?
Honestly, there's 2 right now. New England and the Giants. Giants probably have to be first on that list of someone I don't want to go there because I don't trust the organization right now. I don't trust the quarterback. I don't think they do either, for what it's worth. And New England is number 2 because at the current state, it's the quarterback position's in flux. And if they were to take a receiver and hypothetically roll with Mac, it is what it is. I wouldn't love it. But I think that situation can be healed by potentially adding a Russ or whatever, something in free agency, potentially to New England. And then if that happens and they draft Marv, I wouldn't be upset. But I think Tennessee. I think the Giants have to be that one team. If one of these guys lands in the Giants, I'm going to be, okay, maybe that's the guy that falls down just a tick.
Yeah. See, I don't know. So the Giants, to me, I think the lack there. I think Daboll knows what he's doing. I think he really helped Josh develop when he was a rookie. I just think they had 0 talent there whatsoever. So I think that adding a player there. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you're in or out on Daniel Jones. I think you're just talking about that, but I think that Jones is fine. And I think if they can get some, they've had literally no receivers there. Well, Saquon Barkley is getting triple teamed coming out of the backfield, so I think one of these receivers would make sense there. They absolutely should. And I wouldn't hate that. New England, on the other hand, Mike and I were just talking the other day, and I'm like, man, I really love Jaden Daniels, but if he goes to New England, it's like, I just feel like they've got they don't know what they're doing. They haven't known what they're doing for a while. So, but like you said, I think the quarterback first is the main, is Cousins going to go somewhere? I heard Atlanta whispers recently, where are these quarterbacks going to land? They're like, Russ, is he going to Pittsburgh? So let's have some of that kind of figure itself out first. And then we'll see what the NFL draft does.
Agreed 100%. I do think that is the Giants want to, I like Daboll. I do like Daboll. I think it's more of just an organizational understanding of team building. It feels like at this current state, and I'm not trying to come at anybody's head or anything, but I'm just saying they've missed on the offensive line. They haven't really, it doesn't feel like they've really attempted to add real talent at the wide receiver position and spend at it or take high draft capital at it. And I think that's the big problem. Like you mentioned, Daniel Jones, he's not getting the fair shake. I'll give him that. Is there opportunity? Of course there's opportunity, but you have to be able to build that team cohesively, consistently, and not get your quarterback beaten and give him opportunity to get the ball out. And that's what your Buffalo Bills did. They went and, got Diggs and gave another piece to Josh Allen to work together and build and work. And, they did pretty well on the offensive line. So something the Giants are a little behind the 8 ball on.
Cody, one more from me. Maybe the answer to this is worthy. Maybe it isn't. Who was the biggest mover up among the wide receivers at the combine? Worthy might be the answer. Second round pick or even later to, you're saying mid to late first now. AD Mitchell, I know, ran real well, had the broad jump. Anybody else that maybe you think wasn't being talked about very often, late first, early second kind of range that might have entered the conversation?
I'll give you one name, 2 honorable mentions. The 2 honorable mentions, I would just say Ladd McConkey. If you watch the Senior Bowl, Ladd's good. And Ladd was in the early second round conversation before the combine. At the combine, he ran 4.39. Everything came in. The measurables are fine. He's got sub 9-inch hands, not great, but everything has been checking boxes for Ladd McConkey. Xavier Legette, Leggett, sorry, came in undersized at the Senior Bowl, but then he bounced back and he ran the 4.39 at 223 pounds, which is massive for him at the NFL Combine. So that's big. But the one that I think I'm looking at is Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall from Florida, 6'1", 189 pounds. Had a good Senior Bowl, not great. There's a lot of people out there giving him all the helium in the world, and fair. And they were giving him helium out of the Senior Bowl, but he didn't really perform at that level. I think they were just big fans of him. But coming out of the NFL Combine, 4.41, 6'1", 183. He's dominant in the slot. He's going to play in the slot in the NFL. Very good route runner. I think he was 7th or 8th in our overall grading at the wide receiver position at the NFL Combine. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to succeed, and I think there's opportunities for him to be a top 50 pick in the NFL draft, whereas if you would ask me 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, maybe early, mid-third round.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've got that's all crazy how these receivers kind of move around, how the combine, obviously you take some combine, it's big time for the measurables, right? Like, is he actually 6'3"? Oh, no, he's 6'2", or maybe he's 6'4". So this is stuff like that. Kind of some other stuff. I have two questions. The first one is, how much you take into account like breakout age or like just general age? Like you got Ladd McConkey who's 22 or Xavier Leggett who's 23, and then you got like a Keon Coleman who's like 20 and a half. Like, does that matter to you? Like where they are in their progression? And like, obviously if you're 23, you should be maybe head and shoulders better than the 20-year-old. Like, how do you view that when you're doing your rankings?
1,000%. I think they all work in conjunction. And I've had this conversation dating back to, when I first got the Player Profiler, me and Josh would beat heads. Me and Josh Larkey would beat heads about this because he's very analytically driven, and he always thought I was solely film driven. And it's something where I don't think I'm either. I utilize everything that I can possibly find, learn, garner, conversations had, shows like this. Even if you say one thing, it makes me think of something else. I go look it up, add that to your process. So I do take into account age. I think everybody should, but you just have to take in different contexts. Is like Xavier Leggett, you brought up, he's old, right? Ladd McConkey, he's old. Why did they take so long to succeed or get to this level? Ladd was never treated as a 4 or 5-star prospect. He was undersized. He's a little white guy, and he had, weapons around him: Bowers, Pickens, Mitchell. They ran the ball a lot. They've had 4 backs that are going to be in the NFL, after this draft. And it took him a little bit, but he was very polished in his route running, and he's there. Leggett, why did it take him 5 years? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't had those conversations. I don't know. But Leggett, when you look at what he did this year, I still have a ton of question marks on a guy like that. I'm not just going to put him into the top 7 or 6 because he ran a 4.39 and he's a hyper dominant, specimen. His route running is it's not at the top of this conversation. It's not. It's closer to the Brian Thomas conversation than it is the other guys. So I think that's one thing that I'm trying to tie here is if you're Ladd and you're 23 and your route running is crisp and your route running is allowing you to separate 2.5, 3 yards at a pop, that's a lot easier to transit to the NFL with the 4.39 speed than it is for a Leggett who took 5 years to break out at South Carolina, had more yards his first 4 games of senior year than he had the first 4 years at South Carolina. It's going to be a lot hard for him to get to the next level and then above that at the NFL, in the NFL when he gets there. So those are just some things that I take into account. I hope that all made sense, but yeah, of course you take the age into account with these older dudes, and the young ones, of course, you get the early breakout. That's a easy check, and player surrounding, teammate score, all this stuff comes into that same conjunction. But I hope that made sense with the with the Leggett and McConkey.
Right.
Yeah, no, that totally made sense.
You hear Cody on WGR occasionally, as well as reading him and finding him at Roster Watch and Player Profiler. Not as often as Adam. Adam's Cody, like my whole staff is ringing his phone off the hook now. It's like, oh, Adam Krautwurst, that's Bulldogs guy, that's Shope's guy, whatever. He's just always being called. But you've been good to join us on over there a few times as well. So, how would you recommend viewers and listeners of ours keep tabs on you?
All my write-up stuff is over at rosterwatch.com. I'm going to be doing some stuff here on Player Profiler and doing some content. I'm going to be, contributing to the rookie guide this year at playerprofiler.com. And then everything else, personally, Dynasty rankings, Cornerstone rankings for the next couple of classes, you can find over at patreon.com/executives over there for that stuff.
Very nice. I know you jumped off another show to come on ours here tonight. It's a busy time of year, but you're up to it, I think, clearly. Thank you, Cody.
I appreciate you boys all the time, every time.
All right. Thanks. Cody Carpentier joining us on the deep end tonight. Wide receiver prospects. There are so many to talk about, and we learned about a few of them right there. I've been drafting all the Packers. Adam's been drafting all the Padres, I'm hearing.
That's
recently.
No. They don't have a great end of season schedule. You know, they're week 17, Mike. Their week 17 is not good. It's not good.
That's way better than I bargained for right there. But that opener, the baseball opener is coming up. The Padres and Dodgers go to South Korea. And is it like the 20th, maybe somewhere around
21st, 22nd, kind of lame. So the underdog tournament that I'm doing, it doesn't even count for the week one because it's like a week ahead of schedule. But it's a week out of I think it starts on my birthday, actually. March 28th, the season, officially kicks off on my birthday. So I'm excited for that. I usually take the day off. But there's no day games. It's all evening games. So I don't even have to take the day off. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm super excited about that, obviously. And then just having Cody on tonight was really great. I can't recommend. I mean, people probably watching the show tonight probably already follow Cody and already get all this stuff, but he's so good and really good at explaining it and, kind of puts it in layman's terms for all of us. And so I really appreciate him and all the hard work he does. And I'm sure he'll be live at the draft. I know he was last year with all the player profiler guys. So definitely check him out. But we got a big spring and summer coming up. We kind of re-upped with the FFPC again, Mike, and we've got drafts coming up. We're going to be doing them weekly. We've got podathons coming up for some of the big contests, the mid stakes one for sure. The Fantasy Pros Championship. We'll be doing some 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour podcasts for that, having some guests on. That's going to be super exciting. And the Fantasy Pros, that mid stakes tournament usually didn't start till after the day after the NFL draft. Now it already started a couple weeks ago.
It's open.
Yeah, that's right. Wide open. $1 million. $350 gets you in $1 million up top. So
I'm going to dip into some well-known people in football that are not really known for fantasy as well, and ask them to come on and draft with us and sort of do that together. Got some names in mind. We'll get to that over the course of the summer. Don't forget, next Tuesday, Adam and I are signed up for the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament Draft. That is the 10 p.m. draft on March 12th. The number is 66355 if you want to spend the $125 and draft with us that night. We'll either stream it live or record a stream for it probably. So lastly, we're talking about how much are we drafting, what is available for drafts. I mean, a lot of our listeners and followers will know those answers. It's also Dynasty season. A lot of what we got from Cody, try to make that actionable in Dynasty drafts. We are going into year 4 of an Empire Dynasty League that I run, that Adam is in, called Empire Niagara. And I saw that FFPC at least was asking about the Empire format for their site. Would people want to do it? And in the process of tweeting that question, they explained it. Well, I know this much. Half the pot every year goes off to the side until somebody wins 2 years in a row, and then the league is folded. And that person takes home all that side money, which is, in 3 years for us, it's already almost $4,000.
Wow.
Mike Leone was the year 3 winner. So as it's been, if Leone wins this year, that's the end of the league. As FFPC was explaining the Empire format to its followers and asking for thoughts on whether it was worth pursuing, they said, after 10 years, the league is folded and all the money is evenly dispersed to all the players. That's it. So it can only last for 10 years. I never thought of that for ours, but I want it for ours. I think that makes sense. I think there should be an endpoint on it. Not only because, maybe it just makes sense, but the money gets to be pretty serious. And I don't know, I feel like already
$25,000, Mike, where is it?
I feel like already I should be investing that money, like buying, at least conservatively, because it's not mine, and it's a little bit, unsettling to be carrying that around. I'm probably the oldest person in the league or one of them, although I am on this diet and things are going the right direction
That's right.
lately. But do you have a thought on that? Like, do you think we could still install it? I think we easily could do that after 3 years. I don't think anybody's strategy would be affected.
No, strategies definitely wouldn't be affected. I like the idea of it, of a 10-year kind of cap. Because people like to draft too. They like to get together and do like a startup. And so, hey, let's, nobody did it. High five, everybody, great job, and let's run it back. I mean, think about it. I mean, where are we going to be 10 or 15 years from now, anyways? So, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. Like you said, for the money purposes, eventually it's going to get to 3 years, 5, so 6, 9. You're looking at between $15,000 and $20,000 that'll be sitting there. I'm all for definitely investing it. But yeah, to kind of I didn't realize how much it was when I was like, oh no, just do like an end of the year party. If nobody wins, I'm like, oh, it's a wedding. It's a wedding.
It'll be in Barbados.
That's right. Fine. That sounds fine.
That's the deep end, baby. They go to Barbados. What are you going to Barbados for? Oh, we're just splitting up our fantasy money.
That's right.
Did you win? No.
We're gonna party.
No,
we're gonna party in the Maldives. So
the Maldives. You know where that is?
My sister just got back from the Maldives. It took her like 2 days to get there, but she absolutely loved it. Southeast Asia, I heard.
Southwest of India, off the coast of India. So southwest in the Indian Ocean.
Okay, there you go.
Southwest of India. But good for her.
Yeah.
I mean, good for her. Yeah, so we'll probably do that. But the Empire format is kind of fun. You're right about the startups. You have people after the first year of Empire Niagara are like, you know what? My team's terrible. I hope the same guy wins again so that we can end it and just do it over.
Yeah.
So,
well, what's interesting too with the dynasty stuff is I'm looking. The only options right now are the live dynasties in Vegas, and those will be interesting. The lowest price point they have for that is $12.50, and that will be. I wouldn't mind doing one. I know you and I have talked about it. I would just need details on like how does that, because the funnest thing about dynasty startups is all the trading. Like, how do you do that live and not have it be 8 hours long?
I know, right?
You know what I mean? Like that would be kind of an interesting thing. Maybe we'll have Alex on. We've had Alex on before. Maybe we'll have Alex on. He can kind of talk everybody through that and maybe promote some of the live contests they have coming up.
You could do it without trades. You could run the startup without trades.
You absolutely could. I wouldn't want to do it, to be honest with you. I like being able to, unless it was like an auction. Now we're getting into the weeds because like when a dynasty, like I want to start with the players I want to start with. And there's been dynasty leagues where I'm like, I think maybe we did that. Like I need to have super flex. I want to have Josh Allen locked up QB, top QB for 7 years. And so we just make the trade or get the pick and do it. But if you can't do that, like you got to have an auction. Cause I just feel like I need to be able, if I'm going to do dynasty, I want to be able to build around like 2 or 3 guys that I want to build around.
There's also a Friday night game this year. That throws a wrench into FFPC week, the bare knuckle or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
The Friday night has been my last draft out there for 3 years in a row. I mean, they're not going to have those now. Like that's going to be set apart for the Eagles game.
Yeah, it definitely throws these, these these play sites for a loop for sure. But I'm like, man, it's just more fun. The Thursday night party is so much fun. Now to be able to do that Thursday and Friday, or even just, hey, you can go a little bit later. You don't have to go for the Thursday game. Go Friday. This year I might be going Friday to Monday or Thursday to Monday. I don't know. We'll see. But it allows you to not miss out on that party. And so no, that's going to be. It's Philly and who else?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. That's right. Obviously, duh. Yeah. So that'll be good. It'll be fun.
But it's nice of you to ask because I think And is there a worse way to spend time? I love speculating about the week 1 primetime schedule. Right. I've got the Chargers going to Kansas City with Harbaugh on the Thursday night. LA. I mean, that works. And then I don't know, Philadelphia, do what you want. I like Buffalo at Houston as a primetime game this year. I think that'd be really good. Opening
week again. Bills were Monday last year, right?
It would have to be a Monday, but just somewhere on the schedule. I think that's a really good primetime worthy matchup. Bills at Texans.
For sure.
Okay, Adam, what did we forget?
I don't think we forgot anything. I think it was a great kickoff. It's been a good rest that we had, and I'm excited to get rolling every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. You guys can find us here. We'll be drafting and doing dynasty stuff now and best ball stuff and underdog drafts, FFPC, and just having lots of guests on that know a lot about fantasy football. So that's how we're gonna roll.
Follow us on, Adam calls it X, on Twitter at DeepEndFF1. You can do that at Shope Talk, at Adam_Krautwurst. Please give us a like and a follow, and subscribe on your favorite podcast service. That helps more people find the show, and we've been off for a couple months, so we could really use that boost as we get started here in 24. Thanks for being with us tonight. Hope you enjoyed Cody Carpentier. You definitely want to follow him and read more from Cody about the prospects as we near the NFL draft. Mike and Adam signing off until next week. Thanks for being with us here in the Deep End.
See you guys.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.